Hello everyone and welcome to a new edition of Low Code Café episode 55. My name is Bogdan. I am the founder and CEO of Plant&App. And for those of you that are new to this webinar, this is something that we are doing every week. We are getting together our community, our team, our customers and users, and we get together to discuss technical topics. This event is being recorded, and then all past editions are available on our YouTube channel, which means 54 hours of technical content, very helpful content. We get very good feedback about using this content for training, for learning Plant&App, learning use cases, learning techniques. So I suggest that you visit, subscribe, and watch past editions. And usually the technical content that we prepare for you, it's a part about the community updates, what's coming, changes coming to the community, new systems that we are launching. Then we also have a segment with our head of product, with Reza, discussing about upcoming releases, sometimes also feature demos, demos of new features. We also have a segment with Dale that talks about lessons that we learn, solutions that we find in the trenches, in the support. Dale is our head of support. And then we have the biggest chunk, which is the hands-on part. And Radu today will be giving us also a training update, because Radu is head of training, leads the academy and onboarding efforts. But also the hands-on part, which is a continuation of the part that started last week, which is about adopting low-code, the first steps that you'll have to think when you onboard into a low-code platform, and especially into Plant&App. So lots of very cool content prepared for today. So without further ado, I would like to invite Chad to give us the community updates.
Thank you, Bogdan. So we have a bit of a shorter community update this week, but a very important one, and I didn't want to add more items here because the biggest piece that I want to mention to everybody today is some frequently asked questions we've had about the DNS migration. Last week, for anyone who had missed it, we announced that we are essentially removing the support for all of our DNS modules come March 2022, except for Action Form and Search Boost. So if you're using those, they will continue to be supported and updated past March 2022, but for all of our other DNS modules, you will have to convert over to Plant&App. And we do have some big discounts and stuff involved, and we'll work with you to figure out what your transition plan needs to be so that it's going to be a seamless move along the way. But some of the frequently asked questions we've had along the way are, what will happen to the existing modules I'm using? Like I'm using tabs, or I'm using grids. What is going to happen? Will it just turn off, or will there be any errors shown? And simply put, no, they will not stop working. But that doesn't mean that you should wait. So the discount is one of those reasons why you shouldn't wait and why you should jump on board, because that's only available until the end of October this year to secure that discount by jumping on early. But that's not even the big portion of why you should make that transition. Because we're ending support for those existing modules, anything that can go wrong eventually will go wrong, whether that's just from other dependencies being upgraded by installing other modules or themes that upgrade those dependencies along the way. More commonly, what you'll see is when you upgrade the DNN platform version that you're on past a version that we've updated, let's say 10.0 in the future, that could introduce breaking changes that break those modules, rendering them no longer capable of doing what you're expecting of them on your site. And the only option that you would have right now, or I shouldn't say right now, sorry, talking as if we're in the future, but then would be the community forum section. So the community as a whole who are still using those unsupported, finding different creative ways to go about fixing them. But of course, without the ability to actually get an update for them, sometimes those fixes won't be there. So please definitely make that switch over to Plant&App. We have many different options on how we can make things work for you. It's not just a set and forget type of situation. We are working with every individual customer that's reaching out, and everyone we've reached out, or sorry, everyone that has reached out so far, they're already excited about moving over to Plant&App. So it's not something that has been I mean, it definitely is a disruption. We don't want this to be extremely disruptive. That's why we're trying to give a long timeline with this involved. We're trying to make the incentives, as this is a big change itself, But if you do have any questions or you want to see how we can help and what we can adjust to make it work for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. That's chad.weiss@planthanapp.io. You can see it right there on the screen. So we can have, I can help answer any questions you might have. We can give a rundown of what you can expect along the way. And the other point I wanted to talk about is for those of you who are still undecided about making the switch, or maybe you just want to hear from someone else who has made the switch already, I'd like to share a snippet from a recent guest post that we published on our DNN Sharp blog. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat here, the link to it, just in case anybody wants to save it and bookmark it, but you can find it on blog.dnnsharp.com. It should be one of the first ones there, titled, "What I Think of Plant and Apps So Far." So the main section I want to share is actually the last section of it. It's a great summary of the entire experience so far of what this individual has. But the bulk of the blog post goes into great detail about individual areas. They even actually touch on cost and some of the value of it and what you can kind of expect to see in there. So if cost is a big concern of yours, definitely go check out the blog. That's not something that we're shying away from. We want to make it work for everyone. And there are a lot of other areas in there if you're concerned about some of the technical aspects, how it's going to change with what your mindset is a little bit as you go through development. One of the big keys that we'll see in the summary here at the end is the way he ends it is easily, faster, much faster. So I just want to read this short snippet here for you guys, because as I was reading through it, this kind of really stuck out as what I think the most important part is. So this low-code development app is desirable if you want to put apps and solutions together. You are not necessarily a seasoned programmer, or if you are an integrator first and a programmer where needed type person. It is also perfect for people who already know DNN and want to level up to creating apps instead of just websites. The DNN knowledge will be a catapult to that effort. So that's exactly towards you guys who are already on DNN Sharp trying to make that transition. For the seasoned programmers, I think you'd probably run faster with this environment than without it. My personal viewpoint is as an integrator. This makes complicated programming tasks within my graph that I could never have done on my own. For you, I think you would operate at a higher level than I easily, and at a higher level than what you were before. Easily, faster, much faster. So that, I think, is a great way to summarize what Plant an App can do for you. I mean, it allows anybody with a foundational knowledge of Excel to go through and be that citizen developer, do roughly 80% of the work, but we don't hide the back end. We don't hide the technical stuff. If you are a heavily seasoned programmer, like they mention here, you can get at that code. You can do what you need. So it really kind of caters to all audiences, and that's what kind of resonated with me from this, because that was one of the first things I picked up on when I joined the Plant an App team. And that was also kind of why I've liked the DNN community overall, because DNN itself has that same aspect. It's got some great tools in there to make it easy to do stuff, but you can touch the database easily as well if you want to. So those are just what I wanted to share with you this week. And if anybody else does have anything that maybe they want to share their use case as well, something that they've picked up on their experiences of Plant an App, whether good or bad. I mean, we want to show all sides of it, because if it's something bad, we can cover that in a topic here and maybe figure out a way to add it into the product if it's a feature we need, show creative ways of solutions around it. And of course, if it's a good thing, that's always stuff we love to hear as well.
Awesome, thanks, Chad. And actually, Mark Bulsing is in this webinar, so thanks for sharing your thoughts, Mark. Really helpful, really thorough. Cool. So we are ready to move on. I would like to get Reza, our head of product, to give us some highlights about the new upcoming release, very cool release, but I will let him present it to us.
Thanks, Bogdan. Hi, everyone. Let me share with you. Okay, so last couple of weeks I was speaking about the 1.15 release and that we pushed it out a little bit. I'm really happy to report that we've gotten all of our major internal sites, as we always talk about. We quote unquote eat our own dog food here, and prior to any release, we update all of our assets. There's probably about 15 different sites or apps now that are powering us as a company. Everything from the community portal, the support center, the console, internal DevOps for actually building the product and pushing it out, our marketing, so even our own internal HR for requesting time off and different things. So all of these are updated. The Console is getting updated tomorrow. It's the last one kind of outstanding. It's the really important major one, so it always comes last. But then we just let things bake for a week, and through regular usage and things, just make sure that there wasn't anything hiding in the nooks and crannies where they can. And so far, knock on wood, everything's looking really good. So I'm going to very confidently state that next Wednesday, during this call, it will be released and live, and you'll all be able to take the update. The release candidate's available now. Got a couple people testing on it, and like with live sites, and have had good feedback on that. Everything's going well there. So feeling really good about this release. Kind of the major killer new feature is the ability to run workflows as tokens. And we've talked about that in past episodes, and how that's a game-changing feature. But there's a whole lot of developer experience type improvements. Some of those listed here, lots of them not listed. And so the changelog and everything will be available next week. You can take a full rundown. I think there's 65 published changes in this release. And also next week, we'll take a little bit of a dive into 116 and take a look at what's on the plate there, and what we're cooking. We're already underway, and there's a bunch of good stuff coming in that one as well. Some new enhancements to be able to have tabs within tabs, to raise an action grid. The way that you raise a form. So having its visibility hidden, having it be able to be popped up and interacted with, rather than just always statically embedded on the page. Just a couple of plenty of cool stuff we're going to be working on in 16. So look forward to sharing that with you all next week. And like I said, I've done put it out there now. 15 next week, next Wednesday. That's it for me.
All right. So from the trenches today, let's see. Going to talk about a couple of things. In the support channel, I often get questions about things that I know nothing about, and get the opportunity to learn something more about the product. So today, I'm going to talk about File Manager. This is a form field that you can add to your projects and use. It's good for uploading and managing images or other files. So this is in the documentation here under File Manager, but I'm just going to run through it. There's very little setup that's going to be necessary to make this happen. I've gone into the I've gone into the site assets, and I'm going to create a folder here so that that's where we're going to put our things. So we'll just call this LCC 55 as a folder. And that's where our files are going to go that we upload. Other than that, I've got an empty form and, an empty page, and I'm going to go in and add a form to it. And so you'll see the entire configuration. It goes to, let's see, we'll do an action form and place it on the page, manage it, start with a blank form. And I always like to name things. It's very useful. So File Manager Demo, and by way of personal preference, I like my labels on the top. So I'm going to do that. And so we're only going to be adding two things to this. First is the file manager field, and we'll be configuring that. And then also we're going to have a button that is going to be, we'll just leave it as a submit button, but we'll talk about the purpose of that in a minute. So let's run through the configuration of File Manager. It has the standard show conditionally, enable conditionally description, but here's where we start getting into the configuration of this particular tool. You can lay out your files in a grid layout or a list by default, and I'm just going to leave it with the default. You can add CSS if you need to. So do we want to allow it to upload multiple files at a time or not? I'm going to allow it to do multiple files. and whether or not it's going to automatically upload these files. I'm going to talk about that towards the end. I'm not going to give a limit. I am going to point it to the folder that we just created for this. I'm going to allow any file types and not limit file characters or provide any pattern. And I'm going to display total progress and take my button and include it as part of the form. So, and then notice there's a for each file section here. This is where you can provide actions. I'm going to, again, come back to that one because that was the source of the question that I got. So we'll save that and take a look at what we've got generated. The file manager has an upload and a browse files. And so if we go to browse files, it's going to show us all the files in that folder, which there aren't any yet. But I'm going to use the upload, and I've got some fun pictures here that I'm going to highlight some and just drag onto the, you could either click or and choose them or drag them onto the canvas. And so these are my grandson, featuring my grandson in the pool and me. So because we didn't automatically upload, we have to actually click the submit button to get this to work. And you'll see that these files upload and you can see the progress of each file. And I've picked some big ones and I picked a lot of them. So it's going to take an unusually take longer than I had hoped. But we'll let it finish. So while that's going on, let me talk about the nature of the problem, the reason I got into this, the question that somebody had for File Manager. That for each action stack of actions gives you access to all the files that are being uploaded and, for example, could be used to add them into a database as you're uploading them. The problem is that that action stack only works when you push the related button or when the form is submitted. If the form isn't submitted, the actions don't run. And so if you choose the option that says automatically upload the files, it looks like the thing is running and is uploading the files, and they do end up in the browse files section, but unfortunately they don't, the for each actions don't work. They don't activate until you actually push the button. So that was the confusion. So there's a little bit of incompatibility there. If you turn on the automatic upload and then your user doesn't push the button, you don't get the actions. So we can now see that these files exist, are being browsed. And if we were to go back into file management and into the site assets and refresh, we can see each of our files got uploaded, and we can see that they were all 3-point-something megabytes. There's some management things here that you can do. For example, you can rename or copy the file path. Copy the file path is good, for example, if you wanted to display a full-size image. And so what I'm going to do next is just demonstrate some delete kinds of things. We can use the delete option and it will remove it from that. And if we were to go in again and refresh this folder, you can see we've now got 3. And I'm just going to delete them all here too. It's just interactive with the file system. So if I were to delete these from here and go back and refresh my file manager, you'll see that they're also gone. So from a configuration standpoint, I wanted to mention, and I'll use my page builder menu here. From a configuration, there's a couple of things that are awfully useful. For example, if we provide a width in pixels of 500 pixels, this is going to automatically scale these pictures down as they go. So I'm going to save those and refresh, and we'll do the same stack of pictures, and we'll see that we get a slightly different result. So I'm going to drag those on here, and they still say they're 3.3 megs, but when I submit them, they're going to go much faster. And if we actually look at them in the file system, we can see that now that they're 50K, and if we browse them, we can see that like I'll copy that and display it, and now the image doesn't show full screen. It's actually been limited to 500, whatever the maximum dimension is. It's 500 wide and something slightly less tall, but it'll manage the size of that. So that's one way to result in smaller images if that's what you're trying to accomplish. I will also show there is this option to switch into a list view versus a grid view, so we can see them with their sizes in this list view file names, or just view them this way. Again, this works with images, it works with documents, movie, MP4 files. So depending on your use, and I just saw talking to a client yesterday that was interested in being able to upload and manage and provide files, and this is yet another option that you can put into your arsenal. The main, again, this customer support caveat was this option here about auto upload files. If you pick auto upload files, it's all the uploads are going to happen immediately, which may be the action that you want, but unless your user is trained to click that submit button, then your actions, your for each file actions won't run. So that is File Manager. As we're going along here, got a comment from Mark that says that he uses that field and it works well for him. So that's an endorsement live. And then, the last thing I wanted to mention, quick thing, every now and then I learn something and I don't know why I didn't know it a long time ago, but tip of the day, Control-Shift-T. If you're looking at a tab and you accidentally close it, which I do sometimes, Control-Shift-T in Chrome brings it back. If you didn't know that, if you were like me and didn't know that, that might be handy for you. Other than that, I'm just old and learning new things. And with that, I'm going to step aside and let Radu present. If I can find my way out here. Stop share. Okay, Radu, you're in.
Hey, thank you, Dale. Right, let me share my screen. So first of all, let me start with a small update regarding the academy itself. Right now, the low-code fundamentals course is available on the academies, and the registration is available, so you can join and take the course if you want. It's around 7.5 hours of video content. So if you want to learn more, I invite you to take the course. But not only that, with the help of my colleague Patrick, this week we also added something new to the course itself. We added quizzes inside the course, so not only that you can watch the video content or read some of the text that's inside the course itself, but also at the end of some of the sections, at the end you have test your knowledge, and test your knowledge is the quiz itself that you can take, and you can get immediate responses if your answer is correct or incorrect, so you can test your knowledge while you are also learning. So hopefully this will this will make the learning curve a little bit more easier and pleasurable. So this was added to the course, and this is gonna happen. Those kind of sections of video, text, and tests will be added in further courses that we are planning. I don't have a name for the next course, but I will keep you updated on through the low-code Café about the different informations that are happening in the training area of the plant and app. Also, after you finish the course, if you feel like you can take a certification, and those certifications last a year. The certification themselves are 30 questions and 30 minutes, and you can start answering the questions, and if in the end, if everything goes well, you have the certification is going to be generated for you, also with the score and the expiration date of it. Also, you have the options to look at the attempts, and also view incorrect after the token certification, view incorrect answers. So you start. I think this is an older test that I did that may not have so, but at least the questions that I missed at that point are here, so you can review and learn more. Go back to the course if you need and learn more about that. And another tool, and this is not actually a tool for learning, but this is a tool for people that are certified or better suited for the employers of people that have Plant and App Low Code Academy certification. You can verify certificates that are not false or that are, I don't know, sent through email, or you can just upload the PDF file that was generated by Plant and App and submit for verification, and information about the certificate will appear here, and just to validate the fact that it's not a fake certificate. All right, so this is those are like the features for the academy. We are planning to expand on the academy to make more courses, to make more features to help you learn. And now that 1.15 and 16 are gonna come in the next next releases, maybe some templates for startup templates from the academy will be added, so you can start learning and learning Plant and App much easier. But we'll get there when the releases will happen. All right, so this is the academy update this week. Not sure if I'm gonna do those updates weekly, but when I have something new to share with you, I will do it. All right. Now I will close this, or if you have questions, I'm open to questions right now. But meanwhile, I will move to the hands-on part. And today I'm gonna do a continuation of what we did in the previous episode. How to think low code and how to utilize the low code tools the best and in your advantage. We discussed last time. We discussed about naming conventions, about namespaces, and we scratched the surface a little bit by going through entities and how the naming, how I would personally recommend of using the naming conventions for entities. And today I would like to start with or continue better, let's say, with workflows. Workflows themselves have the same, they use the same namespace groups that we defined last time. So if I have car and car display, I can choose the namespace that I created for the entity. So we can kind of group the workflows and the entities in the same space. And what I would like to start with is the naming, and so we already have in this situation, we already have the namespaces, and the next thing that we can modify and edit is the name of the workflow and the description of the workflow. Now, the name of the workflow should not be the idea. What I saw with me and my colleagues was that we started because we were in a rush. Let's say each time we were creating, we didn't give too much attention about naming the workflows, and we're just doing car, and that wasn't enough. And after a time we kind of discussed and discovered the fact that workflow name should be a little bit longer, but not that long. We use the description to describe, to say what the workflow is gonna do, but the name of the workflow should be how can I say, when you read it the first time, you should even to have a 90% understanding of what's gonna happen from that workflow. So if I have a, let's say, if I have a workflow that maybe, I don't know, make thumbnails, you should have imagine, because the idea is that you should keep in mind the fact that the action that is generated for the workflow has execute in front of it. So find something that makes sense and in grouping with that execute. So when someone looks at in another workflow or an action list, it makes sense. So imagine that we have execute creation of car thumbnail. And the description can be get a file, and we can say picture, and create some nail from it. Very useful it will be if you specify also the output parameter. So returns file ID. Something like that.
You mentioned last week one of the main points of this is it's very easy to come up with these things as to understand what's going on as you're doing it, but you're coming back a year later and you're trying to understand what's going on. So investing the time when you know already saves time down the line.
Yep, exactly. The idea, I'm not gonna actually do the workflow itself, but let's have a workflow that does nothing, and I'm gonna save this for the moment and see. Now we have creation of car thumbnail, or another name that we can have is create car thumbnail. Maybe it's a little bit shorter, but I like a longer and more descriptive name for the workflows. Now the same. Now if we look at the description that we gave, gets a file picture and creates a thumbnail. From it returns a file ID. So that means that we need to specify a document as an input parameter, and output we have to have an ID of the file. So keep in mind that also the input parameters and the output parameters are relevant, because again those are going to generate the action. Each workflow is going to generate another action by itself. So the input and output parameters are going to be available into the action. So people, if you have an input parameter, so for example, if you know because you're the creator, you know that the creation of the car thumbnail needs to get a document. So, but because you are in a rush, or you just say D from document, and you go to the output, or like let me create this and actually link it to a document, and then after that you say, hey, what was the file ID? Okay, so I'm just gonna say ID, because it's obvious it's gonna be a file ID. Not every time it's that obvious. So let's say it's a file ID output and an input. So usually you should have a document, or even better, an image, because that's what we said that we are gonna put in. So let's switch directly to a parameter of an image and make it required, because the workflow is not gonna work without the image itself, and the output itself. Just go with, you can go with something like thumbnail file ID. So you get an idea of what's actually. Let me see. Oops. I think I pressed something wrong. Okay, thumbnail file ID, and go to something like this. Now, see, I know I need to pass an image, so maybe this is not an image, but as an output I get thumbnail file ID. Now the trick why I'm mentioning this is because now that we have creation of a car thumbnail, let's go in maybe another workflow, because workflows can be called one by another, and let's go with the default right now. I'm not gonna bother about this, but look how now when I search for execute and scroll down, I have execute creation of a car thumbnail, and now based on the name and the description, I had identified the action really easy, and now I also have a description. So if someone is planning to use this action, they have a proper description, and hey, it gets a picture and creates a timeline and returns a file ID. All right, so see, Now the input parameters, the name of the input parameters and the name of the output parameters are here. And when I read it, I don't know, Dale, if you read this one, you need to know from, okay, so I need to pass an image and I need to get a thumbnail. So this is really useful to have the naming to name everything properly. Another thing that I would like to discuss about is the naming of the actions. And right now I have the creation of the thumbnail, but I don't want to do that. Let's say we have a simple inject data, which is going to create a variable in the context of the execution of the workflow. And right now my workflow that does nothing right now would execute this action. So if I go and I need to pass something, it's running. It's not outputting anything because I'm not processing anything. But the idea that is running now, I need to know. I need to know what each individual action. What's the purpose of each individual action? Because sometimes this happens, and maybe not with inject data, but let's take a more realistic solution. The run SQL query. This can be this is something that it's happening to me once in a while. It's happening to me to chain actions that are the same type, like run SQL queries. Now, if I'm gonna ask Dale right now, hey Dale, what those three run SQL actions do, and well, you kind of do not know. You have to start and open them and read the query each time. So this is gonna be selects top one from users, let's say, which is hopefully a valid query. The first I don't know, the first app.car, the first car, and this is gonna be, I don't know, select one. All right.
Sure, we have no idea what that does because you haven't described it.
Exactly. So both all the queries work, but you don't know what. If I delete the connections a little bit right now and mumble kind of them, let's see if who knows.
You're going to play a shell game on me, huh?
Exactly. Which is which? I lost them. See, so sure. All right. Let's link them. Let's link them together. Okay. So
point is better documentation now.
Yes. So to do this, there are two options in this situation. The first option that is the first option. So I don't know what this is. So this is the select one. One thing that you can do is go to the title of the action and add a small description. It selects one. This is the first option. So this is the select one. This is the, let's see. Okay. So select first user, and this one means that selects the first car. First car. Okay. So this is now we know which action does what. Also, something that you can do if the text doesn't fit, you can drag and make it bigger. This is not going to impact by any means the execution of the workflow. So if you need something to be bigger, so you need to fit more text into it. You can go as big as you want. Okay. All right. The second option that you have, so let me discuss a little bit more about the first option. What my recommendation is, keep the type of the action in the title of the name, so you know that this is a query, but also add a small a 2-3 word description about what that action does. If you need to add more text, you can either input the text and make the square of the action bigger, or the second option is to add comments, and you can go nuts with the comments, and they're actually really useful to leave messages or comments on the workflow, so other people that are working with the same workflow. So let's say selects one as a number. That's something that this action do, but I can go and add another comment. Need to implement error handling, let's say, or right. Let's say what can I add to this action as well, and I can put it here. Doesn't, or let's say doesn't work in a cloud environment. I don't know. I'm just.
So these might be a good place for developer notes. You could figure them out, resolve them, delete them as you've completed something.
Not only completed, but just make them that think about other people that are working with you and make their life easier and make your life easier. Again, as I mentioned, I think in the previous low-code cafe, it happens once in a while to have a project to work 3 to half a year on it, and after that nothing happens for a year, and you have to. And after a year, the customer comes back and say, "Hey, I need this done, or I need this extension, I need this whatever," and you are like, "Oh, okay, well, it was a year. I don't remember that much. Let me see what I can do." And if you don't have the correct messages, comments, and titles, and the naming of the workflows and naming of the entities and everything that I'm talking right now, in most cases you're gonna have to start and open each action. Okay, this one selects one. Okay, and what was this doing? All right, so users. Oh, okay, I kind of remember now. But otherwise, you can do is you can just look at it. Okay, this did you move the website in a cloud environment? Because I read a comment that this doesn't work in a cloud environment. So you can solve the issue without investing that much time just because you left the right comments.
Thinking ahead a little bit. Good internal documentation.
Yep. Now another thing about the workflows that I personally encourage people to do is okay, leave comments, make it as you can, make it as readable as possible, move the titles and move everything. But something that I would not encourage is low-code engineers that who are working with the workflow to do, and I'm gonna do, let's add another action. In some situation, let me just to simulate the problem. If you have big enough workflows, they may not fit the screen properly. And what I started seeing people do is, they're just moving to the next something. They're doing something like this. They're moving to the next line with the process. They're doing some okay. They're doing something like that. Go first line and then go second line, so everything fits the screen. And I'm not recommending. My recommendation is to not do this kind of things just because everything is gonna fit the screen. Keep the flow going in one direction, so you know exactly what's happening. It's either from left to right, right to left, up, down, down, up. It doesn't matter, but keep the flow going, because when someone comes and looks at a workflow, they want to see the process from left, in this example, from left to right. Okay, so this happens, this happens, this happens. They don't want to scroll back and let's go again. Let's go on the next line and see what's happening and so on. Another, please. Thanks
for that tip, because I'm guilty of that one. and then you have to fuss with the lines trying to make them work. So
that's one thing, but it's easier for someone to read it if it's linear. And I had a discussion with a colleague, and he was saying, I'm doing this because on the next line it's a next step of my workflow, and something else happens. So the first part is querying the data, and the second part is processing, and the third part is whatever. And I was like, well, if you got in that situation, that means you made the workflow that's too long. You create a workflow for getting the data and create a workflow for processing the data. Split the workflows. Don't go nuts with the workflows. Try to think in reusable components. Are you only going to query the data in this workflow, or is it possible to query data for other workflows as well? Are you only going to process data for this workflow, or are you going to process data for other workflows as well? And a question, not actually a question, but something that happened when it's a workflow. Let's put this question into the discussion: when it's a workflow too long and when it's a workflow too short. That's the thing. And does it make sense to have a workflow that it's one action? Well, yes. It makes sense to have a workflow that only have one action. For example, if your workflow has a query that updates something, you can a run SQL query that updates something from a database, and at some point in time you figure out, hey, I need to update in database 1, and then I need to also update in database 2. If you have a run SQL query action in 5 different places in your system, you'll have to go and update in 5 different places. The idea is that whenever the inputs and the outputs of the workflows do not change, and only the logic inside the workflow changes, it makes sense to even have a workflow that's one action long, because if the output and the input and the output doesn't change, then it means that you don't need to go and change anything inside those 5 places where you are calling the workflow, but only the workflow logic needs to happen. If you're not using the workflow, you have to go in 5 different places and adjust the SQL query. It's not hard work, but I personally finding annoying just to copy paste, and it's not about copy pasting things. It's about thinking efficiently and working smart. So that's where what I'm trying to.
And in the scenario you talk about, it's error prone. If you have it from 5 places and you miss one, then it's a problem. If you're using a reusable component, then and everything routing through there, you won't forget the places that exists.
And not only that, but what if you remember only of 4 of 5 places that you use the action? So, and you forgot the place, and then you kind of introduce a bug by mistake. So okay, I forgot about the place. Let me go and update the query. But when you need to go and fetch it from another place you know about and copy paste it there, and it's starting to be a little bit annoying. So yes, it makes sense to have a one action workflow, and it makes sense to have 100 actions workflows, but try to think if some of the pieces can be reused and are gonna be reused. Sometimes when working with workflows, and it's happening to me on a daily basis, I cannot figure out from the start when I need to break something in a I need to have multiple workflows instead of a one. So what I'm usually doing is, I'm just going and creating a big workflow, and at that point I figure out, hey, this one I already have this piece that's inside of a workflow, but I also need it in another place. At that moment, I'm going and creating a new workflow only for the piece I want to reuse. And while developing and going forward with the project, I figure out it's happening to start with a workflow with, I don't know, with 10 actions, and in the end, we only have 3 actions because everything has been packed in different workflows. But as a good practice, try to think ahead what can actually be a reusable component. My recommendation is to try to work only with workflows, to not go and add actions directly into the action list of the buttons or APIs or automations, and just try to go with workflows, because you never know when that workflow needs to be called from an API, and the second day needs to be from a button. So it's just double work in that case. You need to copy paste every action from each button. So try to go with workflows from the first, and it's gonna make your life a little bit easier. Okay. That's about the workflows. It was a long talk about the workflows, but hopefully it's gonna be helpful. If there are questions, I'm open to any question, and or otherwise I have another 5-minute small topic about how we can how we can work better with pages in some different situations.
So we did get a question from Jim about workflow naming. You can see it there on the chat.
Okay. From who? Sorry.
I'm sorry. The question is, which way do you prefer naming? You could say for the one that you're working on, car thumbnail create as compared to create car thumbnail.
Okay, like car thumbnail create versus creator. Well, this depends a little bit, because now that we before I was preferring, I think, car thumbnail create, but now that we have the namespaces, I can have car thumbnail, and then I can have, you know, creation of a. I can go with the create as the first word. So when I'm filtering by the namespace, I have create, read, update, and everything. The first word is gonna give me the exact. The first word is gonna give me what's a create and what's a delete. Well, it's a let me put it in another way. I kind of prefer the second option, but I don't think it's a big difference. It's more of how you are used to work. Car thumbnail create feels for me a little bit programish. And if you think about it, the action that will be generated is going to be execute car thumbnail minus create versus execute create car thumbnail. So it's just about the naming in the end. But if it works for you and the people you are working will work this naming, that's fine.
So since we're talking about namespaces and names, just a reminder, the namespace is for organizational purposes, right? You can't have two workflows of the same name. The namespace doesn't divide up the name.
Yeah, no. It's not going to divide the name, but it's going to.
The name still has to be unique. Is probably a better way to say that.
Yeah, it's only grouping them together, but the name needs to be unique. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Okay, I think we can touch a little bit on this subject and maybe continue another time. The thing that I would like to mention, and let me see how the application looks right now. It will be nesting the entities, the pages that are in the same let's say in the same namespace. If you're not using the automatic generated one, or if you're using them, personally, I recommend nesting them under the main entity. So if the car brands is a helper entity, the one that is giving them the categories for the brands, I recommend adding them to the under the cars, and everything that's car related and defines basically the car. It helps defining the car, put everything underneath the car. Another thing that in some situation happens is that even if Plant and App generates all the pages that I need, the specific logic that I need to create, it doesn't really help me. The automatic generated pages don't really help me that much. And just to keep everything clean, I'm keeping the same structure. The car brand is under the car and so on. But what I'm doing in some situation is I'm just going and creating a page called entities. And I'm just gonna, okay, yeah, I need to give someone the permissions at least, right? I'm creating a page called entities, and after that, every root entity, in this case the car entity, I'm just choosing the parent page to be the entity. So now every page that's automatically generated, and for the entities, I can just when I create it, I'm choosing to put it under entities. So now if I have cars, now cars have brands and can have, I don't know, colors and sizes and everything like that, and everything should go. The main entities will go on the first level, and the definition of them can go under the second level, and so on. So, and a good example of this is actually under the creation of the academy. Give me a second. And here I have the entities, and we kind of split the accreditations and the courses, because there are two different things inside the application. And now we have the courses, and the courses have sections, and the sections have lectures, and the lectures have lecture stuff. And each individual section has a progress, and each individual progress has the user quizzes. and the accreditation goes again. Accreditation have tests, and the tests have questions, and the questions have answers and certifications and so on. So structuring like this, it kind of, the user test questions define the user test, this user certificate test, and the user test certificate test defines the user test certification, and the user certification defines the test, and the test defines an accreditation.
So a nice top-down layout, and this is, you're using entities. This is something that you're not presenting to an end user, but it's for your internal structure of how you're laying out the.
I'm actually using, I'm using those, but not for the end user. For example, if I need to see the course progress of someone, I know, hey, I need a course and a cursor, and I have a percentage of everyone, how much each individual, how much process they progress they did, basically. And inside the entities, I have again the namespace. I have accreditation, course invitations, and everything is grouped in namespaces. So if I want to check everything that's course related, I can filter by the namespace, and also the workflows are on the same in the same system. I want to see the course. Those are the workflows that are related to the course. If I want to see which is for the accreditation, those are the workflows that are involved in the accreditation. And I think in 1.15, if you choose, depending on how you choose to filter everything, I think it's actually sticky now in 1.15. So if I go back to configuration and go back to workflows, this is gonna be I think it's the filtering of the name. It's gonna become sticky. So if you choose to filter by ID and go to connectors and go back to workflow, it's gonna stick the last filtering, the ordering option that you had. And after that, you only need to specify the namespace. So it's gonna be a lot helpful. Whew, okay, and we are getting close to the time, so I'm gonna stop for today here.
Very good. So there's, if anyone has a final question, we can do that. But other than that, let me take over screen share duties for a moment. And just to say, thank you for joining us. That's good content. And we hope that you'll join us again next week for Low Code Cafe. We always appreciate your feedback, so look for the feedback form that was part of the invitation to this webinar, and we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Radu.